This is one of our first Photoshop lessons, and this lesson is about repairing an old photograph using the clone stamp tool, and then also doing some different color overlay techniques. So we're going to start by opening Photoshop, and before you even begin, I recommend resetting all of your workspace. Well, actually, let's do that after we open our picture. So we're going to go over to File. Instead of New, we're going to go Open. And once we've opened this window, it does not look like mine. Remember that there are many different ways to view your dialog box. We're going to go Applications, Adobe Photoshop CS3, Samples, and we're looking for a picture called Old Image, and hit Open when you get there. Now, it is really nice to pull this corner down a bit and just make sure you've got some blank space around your work. That tends to help people stay actually in the document and not fall off the edges. Now, what I meant by resetting your tools is to go Window, Workspace, Default Workspace, just to kind of reset everything and get things organized. And then I always suggest that you open up your tools so they're double, side by side. Okay, now what you can see in this photo is that you have just all kinds of blemishes around here. It's like the photo's been sitting in a box or something for ages, and we just want to clean up the background. So the tool we're going to use is called the clone stamp. It's right here, and it looks like a stamp. Now be careful that you don't select the pattern stamp behind it because they look very similar. So we get the clone stamp, and anytime you select a tool in Photoshop, double check your settings across the top. We want the brush size to be 21. If it's something other than 21, you can click this arrow and set it back to 21. Normal mode, opacity and flow 100%. So to fix this photo, this may seem kind of tricky, but really it's not so bad. We're going to hold down the Option key on a good part of the photo. So this is a really good part right here. It's nice, clear pixels. So I hold Option on my keyboard and I just click once with my mouse. That selected the good spot. Now I'm going to move my mouse right over a bad spot and just kind of wiggle around and cover up the bad spot. Here's another bad spot, so I'm going to go next to it, Option click, cover it up. Now there are a lot of these spots, so I need to do Option click right next to them. One mistake people make when they're learning this tool is they'll just Option click once and they'll try to cover up all these things, and basically they end up messing up the whole photo. So if you do that, undo, and just remember to do little bits and pieces at a time. So Option click, cover it up, Option click, cover it up. Okay, now I could probably say Option click, cover it up a lot more times, but I think at this point you should be able to fix the entire photo by just hitting Option and covering until you completely clear the entire background space of any bad spots. So notice I'm clicking Option often. I can even fix the one on his hair. Option click, cover. Now what you want to not do is choose something that's very different than the spot you're covering up. So for instance right here, part of it's on black and part of it's on the jacket. So the part on the jacket, I Option click the jacket, just cover that part up. Then I Option click on the black, cover this part up. Option click, cover them up. Okay, so we've basically gotten it all fixed up. Some people take a lot of time for this, and some people just kind of breeze through it. Depends on how much you've practiced and how quickly you get the tool. These speckles I'm going to leave there just so that we can move on a bit, but yours should be really perfect, hopefully. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about adding some color into this image. And right now you can see that it's in grayscale mode. So the first thing we need to do before we can even add any color to this is go Image, Mode, change it from grayscale to RGB color. Now it doesn't look like anything's happened, but now we'll have the ability to add color over the top. So what we're going to do is, if you look at your layers palette, you'll notice there's just one picture, and we're going to add 3 layers. So if I go down here to this icon and click 1, 2, 3, I now have 3 different layers that I can actually draw on. Now layers in Photoshop are excellent because if you don't like a layer, you can drag it to this trash can, it will disappear, or you can just hide layers separately and they'll be over the top of your image. So first thing I'm going to do is slow click twice to label my layers. I'm going to call one of them hair, slow click twice. Oops, see if I slow click too fast I get that window. We're just labeling. And I'm going to call this one cheeks, and this one mouth. Okay, so this is just kind of a technique to add just a slight amount of color over the top. So I'm on the cheeks layer right now, so make sure you've highlighted the cheeks layer. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my brush tool. Not my clone stamp anymore, but my brush. Now that's a really nice size brush. It's 41, and I'm going to double click to choose a cheeky color. So I'm going to go just kind of a shade of pinkish red. Not too dark, not too light, right in the middle. Now if I just started painting right now, that would be really horrible. People would laugh at you because it does not look natural at all. So what you do is you're going to adjust your brushes to a really light opacity, down to like 25 or so. And then your flow, remember your opacity is how much you can see through the paint. Your flow is how quickly it comes off the brush. So I'm going to go to 25 on both of those. Now make sure I have the color I want, make sure I'm on the layer I want. Now I'm just going to slightly color in, just add a little color back over the top of his cheeks. And the point isn't to make it look really fake, it's just kind of touching up with color. So notice if I hide the layer, it goes away and I can see the difference. Okay, so review, let's do some hair. And to do the hair, all I'm going to do is change the color to maybe a yellowish for blonde hair. And notice I leave the settings the same at the top, and now I can just color in the hair. So this is just one of about 20 ways to do this technique. Photoshop is very rich with options. Now the brush is a little big, so I'm going to slide it down and make it thinner so I can get these little corners and pieces. Okay, so now notice the hair. If I wanted to hide it or get rid of it, I can do that too. Last one is the mouth. I'm going to go back to, let's say a reddish pink, and just kind of slide color right onto there. So kind of waking him up a bit from his old-fashioned look. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is a totally different technique for coloring. We're going to do a large section, and we're going to make a new layer first, and this one we're going to call coat. Okay, now the first thing I want to do with the coat is choose my color. So my color is going to be a dark, dark blue. And I'm actually going to choose my regular paintbrush. This time I'm going to go back to 100%, and it's going to look horrible at first. So just trust me that this is one way to do it. And first I'm going to kind of color in the tiny spots like up around his neck and collar. Just kind of color those sections in, get them going. Then I'm going to make my brush nice and big and get the rest of it quickly. So, and you know, this is actually a soft-edged brush. You can see it kind of has a fade out to it. It's probably going to be much better if I use a solid brush, more like this, because my edges will be a lot sharper. Okay, so I'm going to make this cover it all up. Now don't worry about it if you mess up because it's on its own layer, and we're going to touch it up at the end of this technique. So it's just another way to put in some color. Okay, and again, I know it looks pretty ridiculous right now, but I'm glad I made that little mistake because I'll show you how you can fix that later. So now that I have it all fixed up here with blue, I'm on this coat layer, and right above the layers you'll see a little menu, and you're going to change it from normal to overlay. And automatically it created an overlay. Now I'm going to get my eraser tool and just kind of touch up any spots that I kind of went off the edges with. This side I had kind of a fuzzy edge, and that is how you do a color overlay. Now the very last thing we'll do is a little bit of magic. I'm going to click on background, which is my guy with the coat. We're going to go back to our clone stamp that we started on. And I like to change it from just 2 buttons. It looks like he's missing a couple buttons. We're going to add one here, 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 and here. So there's a total of 6. So all I do is hold Option. I click the button to select it. Now I just come up above it and I just paint and wiggle, and it basically recreates that exact button. Now I'm going to go Option, click again, and I'm going to put a button right over here. Option, click on the button, and let go of Option once you've selected it. Now I'm just going to add a button down here. The very last button I'm going to sneak from over here. Option, click, just kind of get a little tiny button right up in this top corner. And that is the first little Photoshop assignment that we'll be doing.